Hello and welcome back at the game, the series where we try to explain HOI4 to all beginners to the point where you can get to a level where you can play the game nicely and streamlined. In the first few episodes we've done a lot of talking. I'm just loading up the save right now. Hopefully that was about 80% to maybe 90% of all the talking that we need to do, and at this point we're actually going to do some action. So I closed last episode with talking about all the tactics, and I said that we're going to move on to army composition next. However, I had said in prior that the first tactic is based on research, and this segues very nicely into research. And since research is something that we should take care of right away, I suggest we should get into that. So first of all, I mentioned early on that you have all of these notifications here. Now these notifications tell you that there is something in the game that requires your immediate action. One of them, first and foremost, is the fact that you have 4 research slots available. Now what are research slots? I pressed W in order to bring this screen up. You also have it here. So research slots is where you would imagine that you have these teams, these let's say in this particular case these 4 teams, who are working on divining technologies for you. Now all of these technologies have a certain effects. They may be, well, let's just go into it and we'll see. Now, you can store 30 days worth of research. So basically the research itself is, you can think of it in the same way as you were to think of as you were to see the factories and the construction. You're basically generating a certain amount of research points per day, and these are stacked up with some modifiers. Now this is invisible to us because we can't actually see the amount of research points per day that you need to generate, but it's sort of simulated in the background. This is how it works. Now over here, top left, you can see the modifiers that you get to your research speed, which is basically your research speed. If you look at it of yourself as generating a certain amount of sorry about that, a certain amount of research points per day, the research speed is you get a 1% modifier on top of that, and it's coming from limited exports. I'm going to jump back into this tab to take another look. You can see here limited exports give you +1 research speed. Closed economy doesn't give you any bonuses to research speed. Export focus gives you a +5 to research speed, so another 4% on top of what we have. While free trade gives you a whopping 10% research speed. This is why you might want to go to free trade in order to get the research done faster, which will allow you to get a technological advantage over your opponents. Some other influencers that give you research speed bonus are the designers of certain equipment, where you can see here you get 15% research speed bonus if you are researching armor. Basically all of them give you 15% research speed bonus while improving whatever you're researching by giving a 5% bonus to this one, armor and hard attack, this one max speed and reliability, this one reliability and soft attack. We're going to discuss what each of these attributes mean when we're going to look at tanks overview. For ships, you have again 15% research speed and some bonuses to certain types of ships based on which of these designers we are picking. The same goes for aircraft. Again, they all give you a blank 15% air research speed bonus, but they also give individual stat bonuses to certain types of aircraft depending on which designer we select here. The material designer we've addressed before. They only give you research speed bonus whether it be an artillery, whether it be weapons and equipment, or motorized. The same applies for electronics and industrial. We're going to see very quickly what those are. And over here for the military theorist, again, it's just the same type of research speed bonus, 15%. for certain land doctrines or nuclear research or rocket research, or the more general ones, again, the cheaper ones, we've discussed it a little while earlier, they only give you 10% research speed bonus. So you either wait to spend more political power to get someone who is more specialized and gives you a bigger bonus, or you take the general guy for a cheaper cost of political power, but you also get less research speed out of that. Okay, these are all the technologies that you will have to research. The ones that are already in green means you have already researched them. The ones that are in yellow means you can research them as of now. The ones that are grayed out means you can't research them because you need to research their previous technology, the previous technology that is available to them. These tabs up here separate all of your research. So in here you have mostly stuff that's related to the infantry. You've got guns, basically all types of guns. These you research the technology, right? So for instance, Carabiner 98K is already researched, right? And I'm going to hotkey to the production menu. You can see this is what we are producing right now. So in order to, let's say, be able to produce the MP38, we first need to research it, and then we can swap out the 98K for the MP38 in this production menu, and then produce the better guns. In order to see the difference between the guns, so to say, so just the question is, okay, well, why would this be better than this one in terms of the game? I mean, you can look at them, you can imagine, okay, well, the Carabiner 98K looks like a single repeating bolt rifle, while the MP38 looks like a machine gun, and the MP43 looks like an even bigger machine gun, and there's also the Panzerfaust, this bazooka-looking thing next to it, so you can only assume that they're doing better. But I'm going to hold down Shift and click through the several technology levels, and then we can compare them. Here we go. Hopefully there'll be enough room. Maybe not. We'll see. Okay, well, we'll just click them from time to time. And yeah, this one. Well, okay, we'll just come back to the MP33 afterwards. So let's just look at these. So the GER 98, being the first original rifle, has the effect that it will unlock your infantry divisions. Now the next ones don't unlock anything anymore because the infantry division is already unlocked. So they just improve on the on whatever the previous rifles used to give. So these rifles, the original one gives the following stats to your infantry division. It gives 20%. It gives a 20-point defense, 2-point breakthrough, 3-point soft attack, 0.5 hard attack. The maximum speed is not really relevant for this, but it's 4 kilometers per hour for the infantry. It gives you 1 piercing, 90% reliability, and 0.4 items of production cost. In comparison to that, the Carabiner 98 gives you +2 defense, +1 breakthrough, +3 soft attack, basically doubling the soft attack, doubling the hard attack, and quadrupling the piercing, so +3 piercing. It has the same reliability and only a fraction more of the production cost. So only, I would say, 25% more production cost based on this. And it also consumes 2 steel, just like the previous guns. So what this means is that you, obviously the newer guns are better in every way, except they might cost a little bit more. Now, if you compare the MP38 to the Carabiner 98K, I'm just going to close the GER 98 for simplicity reasons, and I'm also going to bring up, because I'm a bastard, the MP43. Okay, so if you compare the MP38 with the Carabiner 98K, you can see it gives 6 more defense, 1 more point of breakthrough, another extra 3 soft attack, another zero point 0.5 hard attack, and it gives you 1 more point of piercing, while again increasing by 10, by 0.10, 0.1 technically, but let's say 0.10 production cost units, and it is also consuming more steel to be produced, so you're getting better gun, but it costs more. The same applies to the MP43, which again sort of increases everything, defense, blah blah, production costs. It also takes a bit of a hit in reliability, which means so if you just hover over this, says it's the lower value, the more likely the equipment is of suffering a random failure, accident, or exploding in a fiery ball of death when lightly bumped. So yes, poetic license aside, this means that in every day during usage there is a 10% chance that the guns will break. So whenever they're being used, either in training or in combat, there's a 10% chance of guns breaking. This gun, because it's more advanced, has a 20% chance of it breaking. It also happens to cost more steel, but it's significantly better. So even though you can see the soft attack and hard attack increase linearly through the increases are linear through the generation of guns. The same can be said for breakthrough, and the same can be said for defense. You have +6, but they sort of compound, they sort of stack up over time. Now, here's where things get interesting. It says here that if we were to start researching today, but we can't because we need different technologies in order to be able to research them, but it says if we were to start to research this thing today, we could get the MP38 out in 768 days. The base cost of the research itself is actually 170 days, but because it's so ahead of time, well, first of all, the research speed here that we have available to us is 1.1. We have a research speed bonus of 1% that's coming from limited exports. We've discussed this previously. But the base cost of research of 170 days is actually expressed in, so behind the scenes, we're not seeing it. It's actually not expressed in days, but in research points. And because the technology is 2.99 years ahead of time, it incurs a penalty which is actually derived, from what I remember, it's derived logarithmically. Yeah, I know, big fucking word. Basically, what it means is that the further ahead of time something is, the larger the penalty is, and it's not linear at all. So this 170 days base cost is actually multiplied by 600%, and you are getting, based on your 1% bonus and so on, you're getting the idea that if you start this research today, you will finish in 768 days. So even though the base cost is 170 days, it'll take you 768 days to research this technology if you start today. Now, if you are actually to start in time, we're going to see what this means just a little bit later on. If you actually start in time, then all of this technology ahead of time penalty will decay to the point where it no longer is relevant in any case. So if you look at this one, the 43 guns, the MP43, which are actually being researched in 1942, if I remember correctly. So what does in time mean? In time means a correlation between these years up here and where the guns are falling in here. So the MP43 is actually designed in time in 1942. So for for 1936, 2nd of January, that is 5.99, almost 6 years ahead of time, and the penalty is a whopping plus 1200% over the 170 days, which is why you are getting a research time of 1,427 days out of a base cost of 170 days. Now, we're not going to take out the calculator that quickly, but just to come back to the idea, we have these guns. So it might still be worth it, basically, if you start researching something today, basically, you will still get it faster than if you were to start researching it on the 1st of January. So let's say this one is in time in 1942. If you were to start researching in the 1st of January 1942, it would take you about 170 days, more or less, which is still this base cost that won't go away, 170 days more or less in order to research it, and then 170 days into 1942 you'd be able to produce it. But if you were to start it today, it would you would finish sometime before 1942, so you could start producing it earlier. This is more apparent for the MP38, which if we start researching it today, we would be able to finish it in 768 days. But between now and the 1st of January 1939, if my math is correct, there are a little bit over 900 and no, actually more than 1,000. Let's see, so 365 plus 365, that's 730 days. So basically 2 years. 730 days means January 2nd, 1938, right? And then 360 more days on top of that would be 1,095 days. So from now to the 1st of January 1939 are more or less 1,095 days. So basically, if we were to start the MP38 on the 1st of January, we'd add another 170 days on top of that. So that would mean 1,265 days. And I'm not showing off. This is the kind of math I have to do in my head. You don't have to. Basically, what you need to understand is that even if you start researching ahead of time, even though you are wasting research points fighting against all of this ahead of time penalty, you will still get the research out earlier than if you were to start researching it on the 1st of January of the year when it's in time. So sometimes going a little bit ahead of time on researches is a good thing. Now let's go through all of these screens and explain what the idea is. So basically, here's the problem. You have 4 technology research slots. All majors have 4. Most of them can gain another research slot. Ours is right here, an extra research slot, and I think, yeah, that's it. That's the only one. An extra research slot. Some major nations get, like the USA can get 2 extra research slots. The USSR starts with 3 and can only get 2 more, so they can only go up to 5. So I think the USA is the only country that can go up to 6. Basically, all the other majors can go up to 5, and all the other minors start with either 2 or 3 research slots, and they can generally go up to 4. All the minors, that is. The USSR starts with 3, and they can get 2 more research slots, and they can go up to 5. So basically, what does this mean? It means that right now we can research 4 things in parallel, and when we get our next research slot, we can research 5 things in parallel. But we have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 things that we could research. And even in these screens, just in this screen alone, technically we could research 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things, 6, 7 things in parallel in one screen, out of which, so let's say, okay, we don't want to try that, but out of which 1, 2, 3, and I think this one's ahead of time. So these 3 researches are actually in time. We don't receive any penalty on them, so we would be researching them effectively by selecting them. So over here we have 3 available researches that are in time. Over here in the support companies we have 1, 2, 3, 4 researches that are in time, so that is 7 if you're counting at home. Over here in this screen we have 1, 2, 3 researches that are in time, so that would be 10. Over here we have 1, 2 researches that are in time, that would be 12. Over here all the researches here are in time, but they are exclusive to one another, so we can only go down this branch. So over here we have 1 research that is in time, so that is 13. I'm just proving a point. We're going to come back and I'm going to show you what all these mean, what all of these mean. Over here, so we had what, 13 researches. Over here we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Is this one in time? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This one's ahead of time for some reason. No. Huh? Yes, this one is ahead of time. So 9, 10, 11, 12. So we had 13 researches, and on this tab alone we have 12 more researches. So we have 15 at this point. Then here we have 1, 2, 3 that are always in time and always available, so that would be 25, that would be 28. In this screen we have 1, 2, 3, 4 more, so that would be so we had 28, that would be 32. Then here we have 1 more, so in this case it's always in time, so that would be 20. So 30, we had 32, that would be 33. Over here we have 34, this one, 35, 36. So we have, at this moment when the game just started, we have 36 researches that are in time and only 4 research slots that we can attribute to them. So the question is, how do we prioritize what we want to research? Well, here's the simple part. Here's the easy part. In the engineering sector, you have that which enables research speed bonuses. You want to get as many research speed bonuses as possible in order to be able to research faster. So this line here, electronic engineering, mechanical computing, computing machine, improved computing machine, and advanced computing machine. Now these are, some of them are ahead of time. The research tree goes down to 1942. All of these give you research speed bonus. So, and these things stack. Basically this one gives you +3, this one gives you +4 on top of the previous +3, this one gives you +5 on top of that, and so on and so forth. And also in 1940 the first level of atomic research also gives you a research speed of +4 bonus. So the first priority that I always take is improving your research speed. So always have, if there is a research technology that is in time and you can take it, absolutely take it. Sometimes even ahead of time. We'll discuss taking things ahead of time a little later on. So right now it's a base cost of 85 days. It's called electronic mechanical engineering. We want to improve our research speed, so one of the research slots goes to that. Okay, fine. Now we have 3 research slots left and 35 possible researches in time. Okay, here's where the next important part is. The next tab that's very important in terms of research is industry. You always want to keep your electronics and your industry in time. So they are some of the most important things that you have. Why? Because here we have construction, and it gives you construction speed bonuses and factory repair speed bonuses. Now the construction speed bonus applies to everything that you were to construct. So basically, when we get a construction speed bonus of 10%, this 10% will be applied everywhere, and you will see it there under the limited exports as plus 10%. So basically, it improves the output of your civilian factories no matter what you use them to build. So we will always want to get the construction technology whenever it's available. Next research is the basic machine tools. What do the basic machine tools do? Well, they give you a production efficiency cap increase of 10%. Now, where did we find the production efficiency? It was right here. It's basically cutting our production in half. So this gives us another 10% available of production efficiency, which will grow and get filled up by getting more production efficiency per day. So basically, when we finish researching this tech, our production efficiency cap is going to jump up 10%, and then everything here will grow in efficiency to catch up to the new cap. So everything will get produced faster. In a sense, we will be actually outputting more production units per day than what we are currently outputting. Remember that trade laws and stability also affect this production output. So that takes care of 3 of our 4 research slots. So basically, we have 1 research slot left, and we have 33 in-time technologies that we can choose. And here's where the question is, what do we need to choose? What do we need to choose next? Well, do we need anything in order to increase out of this technology? Well, let's take a look about what's in time and what's not. Special forces, Marines and paratroopers. Do we foresee any need for them in the near future, in the next 167 days, let's say? No, not really. Okay, so then we can bypass them. What about weapons and equipment here? Well, what does this technology do? This technology increases the defense. So basically, it gives some modifiers, some more bonuses to defense and breakthrough, plus 5% to all of these types of units over here. Now, you don't need to bother learning what. Well, you will obviously learn by heart, so you don't need to remember them, but I'll tell you right now, this is infantry. This is bicycle infantry, which is a very special type of unit that's only available by default to Japan and the Netherlands, but there are some mods that make them available for everyone. This is motorized infantry, this is mechanized infantry, and this is amphibious mechanized infantry. This is cavalry, this is mountaineers, paratroopers, and marines. If you don't have all of the DLCs, which I highly recommend that you get in order to enjoy this game in all of its glory, this might not be available to you. The amphibious vehicles, which you can see them down here, are only available through the Man the Guns DLC, I think. That's when they were introduced. So this gives you a nice defense and breakthrough bonus. It's good to have, it's nice to have when we're fighting. Do we plan to do any fighting in the next 125 days? I don't know, maybe not. It doesn't seem like it. But it's worth notice. It's worth noting. Here we have support equipment. and different type of support companies. We're going to get into what they are later, but basically, as you can see, some of them are researched, right, at 1936 levels, while others are not. In the so let's just go through what these do. So the engineer company will give you some bonuses for movement in all types of terrain. So basically some bonuses for movements and some bonuses for defense and attack on certain types of terrain. So it's a very good, and it also gives you 5 extra entrenchment to the entire unity. Why is entrenchment useful? Entrenchment acts as a bonus to defense. So if your unit spends a long time in a place, so let's say, oh, here we've already spent a day. So if you look here, this is the entrenchment, and it receives a defensive combat bonus. The maximum entrenchment is 20%. Currently, we already have 4% of the max 20%. It will increase by 2% per day, so it will reach max entrenchment in 8 days. The base maximum is 5%, and it is coming from the division template. The base gain of entrenchment is 1. So if we put engineers in this unit, and actually I think we already do have engineers in this unit, if we look at the template, yes, we do. This is what's giving us the 5 entrenchment. So you are getting a defensive, so you're getting your entrenchment gives you a defensive bonus to your combat stats. Now, if the further out we go, it gives you more entrenchment as we go through technologies, and it also gives you different attack and defense bonuses in other types of terrain like fort, river, and the urban back in 1945. Recon Company, what it does is it gives you some movement bonuses in all types of terrain. Shut up, cat. Okay, it will have some negative modifiers on, it will actually have some negative effects on your breakthrough and your hard attack, because here we have, and also on your defense and your soft attack, because here we have some 500 men who aren't actually being used in combat, but they're just being used to get some recon out of the and it boosts your reconnaissance by 1. This is not in percentage but in absolute value. The reconnaissance is the ability to scout ahead and anticipate the enemy. This increases the chance that this unit will pick a better tactic in battle depending on what the tactic of your opponent is. We will discuss all of this when it comes to battle, but it's good to have recon in your companies, just because you do not want, you want to, whenever you're in battle, you want to have the best possible tactic, so you want to increase the chances of that tactic. So again, if we look back at the infantry division, and I'm clicking here to see that, and I'm switching over to the template, you see that the recon company is not yet integrated in the support, and instead we have support artillery, which is why we are using these 12 items of artillery. These 30 items of support equipment are being used by the engineer company. So if we are going to add a recon company to this unit, or to this unit template, so to say, it tells you here, it will use 500 more manpower, it will take 120 extra training time, and it will also use, well, doesn't it say how much support equipment it will use? Or am I missing it? Supply use, HP, soft attack. Well, I guess it doesn't say how much support equipment it will use, but this is something that will show up in the division designer. We're going to look at that later on. So okay, so these things we already have. We can integrate them into our units. We already know the technologies. There are, however, these other technologies, which are the military police, which gives you an overall suppression bonus. You will almost never research military police. There is the maintenance company, and the maintenance company is very good because it gives you a starting with 5% and going all the way to another 5%, so all the way to 20% extra reliability to all of the equipment in your battalion. So if you remember, not in your battalion, in your division. So if you remember here, this has a reliability of 90, this has a reliability of 90%, and this has a reliability of 80%. So if we were to be using, so if we were in 1939 and we were to be using MP38s and we were to integrate maintenance companies at 1939 level, we would get a plus 10% reliability. So basically our guns would never break. The same goes for 1942 guns. Back in 1949 we would get plus 20% reliability. So basically again our guns would never break. Now the other point that we need to discuss is the equipment capture ratio, which is also set at 5%, and it increases with each level also by 5%. So basically what this means is that after a combat you have a 20% chance of capturing equipment left behind by the enemy, assuming that you won that combat. If you are running at a deficit for guns for some reason, but this is very powerful in tanks, especially if you're facing other tanks, so especially when you have tank-to-tank warfare, you are liable to capture 20% of tanks. This is actually a pretty overpowered mechanic in Hearts of Iron 4, and you can see it in, I think there's a video, well, you're gonna have to search it. I don't really remember if Rimi did it or Feedback Gaming did it, where they decide to not produce anything and just use this equipment capture mechanic out to equip their armies, and the results are absolutely insane and out of this world. They manage to supply their armies through only captured equipment, so it's a little bit overpowered, this equipment capture thing. Another interesting support company that we can research is the field hospital. Now what does the field hospital do? It gives you less experience loss due to casualties. So basically if a unit is losing men, you will get a decrease in the experience. So then the new men are basically recruits. So the experience is the overall experience of the unit is brought down as the new recruits come in. This field hospital sort of simulates that some of the men aren't killed, but they're only injured and they come back. So you get a minus 10% experience loss per level, which I think, yes, per level, which will compound to minus 40% experience loss when you get to 1943. So basically this is a way to build veteran heavy units, so you can keep your units. Also, another function of this is this trickle back thing. What this means is originally it's 20% and then it's another 10% per level. So this means that whatever the loss is that you actually incur in combat, 20% of that is sent back to the manpower pool. So basically these people are not considered dead, they're just considered injured, and they're just sent back to your manpower pool, and you get to mobilize them again after a certain amount of time. This is called trickle back, and it starts at 20%, and you can get it up to 50%, which is pretty powerful, meaning that whatever losses the unit incurs, only half of them are actually dead people, lost manpower, while the other half goes back into the manpower pool. So the field hospital is something that we need to think about integrating into our divisions. Then there's the logistic company. The logistic company has only one point, which is reducing supply usage. We are going to discuss supply at a later date, but just keep in mind. Oh, and it also reduces fuel usage by 5%. So keep in mind that it will compound to reducing supply usage by 40% and reducing fuel usage by 20% in total. It also yeah, so we are going to come back to this at a later date, the logistics company. The signal company is has this is the important stat of the signal company, which is the initiative. It increases the initiative of your division originally by 20% and then by another 36%. So you get an overall increases in initiative of 56%. What does initiative do? The higher the initiative a unit has, the quicker it can reinforce into a battle, and the quicker it will get its planning done. So initiative is again a very powerful stat, let's say, but it's not really measurable in the sense that you can't really touch it. But you can see it impacts the ability of a unit to enter combat quicker, to reinforce a certain combat. Okay, now we can't research signal company right now because we are missing the radio, and the radio was here. And in order to research the radio, which gives us an extra 5% reinforce rate, we're going to talk about reinforce rate when we discuss combat, we need to research the electronic mechanic. What was it? What the hell was it called? The electronic mechanical engineer. Okay, that's a mouthful. Next tab is armor. Basically everything here is up to date to 1936, except I was talking about we have three variants of the light tank Panzer IIs, and these variants are as you can see, these symbols repeat everywhere. So these variants are a tank destroyer, the Marder 3, I guess, which is basically a tank with a big cannon and a large amount of piercing. This is generally used to keep your piercing up. It's very rarely useful. We will discuss how you get pierced. So you get 30 piercing, just to compare. However, you get 30 piercing on the standard tank, while the tank destroyer has a whopping 77 piercing. So that is a lot of piercing. Then you have the self-propelled artillery, the self-propelled armored artillery, which only gives you 40% piercing, but its actual reason for existing is the soft attack. The soft attack here is 42, while the Panzer II soft attack is only 16. So again, you have at least you have 3 times the soft attack in this artillery. Where you lose it is that it has less hardness than the actual Panzer IIs, and it has less armor, 10 as opposed to 15. We can discuss what these mean later on. And you also, in order to build this, you need an extra 1 tungsten, whereas the base Panzer only requires steel to build. If you remember, we were trading for tungsten with Sweden, so we don't have access to a lot of tungsten. Now the next variant is the anti-air variant, which you rarely ever need to use. It has, on top of this, it has air attack, which is 17 air attack, which our regular tanks have none of. Again, you only use steel in order to build this. Now there are 3D models, I think, but they're actually identical, I think, to the Panzer II 3D model, so we don't need to bother with that. That's just a little bit of fluff. So we have these three variants here. We don't really need any of them. Depending on the strategy that we're going to take, we might take this artillery, because basically we'll be fighting against infantry most of the time, and because we can convert the tanks, as you can see here, the Sonderkauf one, bloody hell, I don't know how to pronounce this without actually looking at it. So the Wespe 124, German for Wasp, was a German self-propelled artillery vehicle based on a modified Panzer II chassis. What this means is that if we have enough Panzer II chassis, we can convert them into this version. We can actually take the tank that we've already built, that are going to become less useful over time, and turn them into self-propelled artilleries for the increase in soft attack, which is especially useful when fighting infantry. Now, the next type of tank, which is this Panzerkampfwagen III, as you can see, to compare it with the Panzerkampfwagen II, this is what we are going to get, that 2 years ahead of time bonus from the Soviet Union, which we're going to use on it. As you can see, it has the same amount of defense, it just has more hardness, it has more hard attack, more same amount of breakthrough, a little bit more soft attack. It is slower, has a boatload more piercing, and it also has a boatload more armor. It has 4 times the armor of the Panzerkampfwagen II. This is actually why the medium tanks are considered medium. Also, you can see it takes less steel to produce, but it takes 2 tungsten. It is also a little bit more expensive to produce overall, and uses a little bit more fuel. So it's basically just a heavier version of a tank that's got a shit ton more armor and just a little bit more attack here and there. But the armor in itself is why we are going to build it. And just for contrast, the Gross Tractor, which is the 1934 heavy tank that I've sort of mentioned, heavy tank in a certain context. So the 1934 heavy tank is just a bigger, badder beast with same amount of breakthrough as the 1939 medium tank. It's much slower, only 5%, only 5 kilometers per hour, which is why you can integrate it into the infantry battalions without any problems, because infantry have 4 kilometers per hour, so you're not losing as much as if you were to integrate some medium tanks with your infantry, because then you'd be giving up some of the mobility. And also the armor of the 1934 heavy tank is bigger than the armor of the 1939 medium tank. Piercing is lower, and the production cost is almost twice as much. Now, just to compare, we're not going to insist on this for too much. Just to compare, the Panzerkampfwagen 4, which is the medium tank 1941 level, and the Panzerkampfwagen 6 Tiger, the Tiger, which is the heavy tank of the 1941. Here you have a straight up comparison. The armor is 80 for the medium tank. The corresponding armor is 110. The piercing is 81. The piercing is 111. So this is a much bigger piece of armor, and also the hardness is 95 versus 90. And this also maintains for the 1943 variants of the Panther, which is the medium tank, and the Tiger Ausführung B, which is also known as the King Tiger. Again, 90 armor for the medium tank, a whopping 130 armor, 91 piercing, whopping 131 piercing, and well, I suppose, yeah, breakthrough just a little bit bigger, soft attack just a little bigger. So this one just hits harder and protects more. So, and just to for the fun of it, the 1941 Leopard tank only has 30 armor compared to the whopping 80 armor of the Panzer IV, the corresponding 1941 medium tank. So that is the difference between medium tanks and heavy tanks. It's all in the armor and the piercing.